Imagine a galaxy on the brink as ancient alliances teeter and brutal warriors threaten entire worlds. Humanity steps in as the single hope for salvation, turning peace into devastation. Will the survival of the many lead to moral ruin for all, or will war's echoes birth a fragile new hope? The ultimate test of alliances, breathtaking battles, and secrets await. If you want to dive into real stories of parallel realities every day, in enigmatic, technological worlds that are completely different from our planet, subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Well, let's go. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with luminescent grandeur, a beacon of interstellar diplomacy, yet it vibrated with undercurrents of distress. Delegates from across the star systems argued fiercely, voices clashing like distant thunderstorms, each representative exuding a blend of grace and power unique to their species. The hall's polished floors reflected the fragmented shadows of its occupants, witnessed by the ever-watchful eyes of statues representing the old alliances, a testament to the fragile peace that had once reigned. In stark contrast to the opulent surroundings, the discussions were heated. At the forefront of the debate stood emissary Litra of the Lien, a species renowned for their serene dispositions and intricate ceremonial garb, encrusted with bioluminescent patterns. Litra's calm demeanor and melodic voice often swayed opinions in the council, but not today. Her lilac eyes sparkled with restrained frustration as she faced Zathrix from Karur, a bellicose warrior with a towering presence and an armory of scars narrating innumerable battles. The contention between the two was palpable as they deliberated the escalating threat of the Korum, a relentless military force bent on galactic domination. Litra advocated for enhanced diplomacy and strategic resistance, seeking to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, while Zathrix, with his booming voice and hand perpetually resting on his energy blade, demanded immediate, unrestrained military action. Amid the cacophony, the human delegation stood on the periphery, observing. Humanity's history in the galaxy had been one of deliberate aloofness, a species shrouded in mystery and advanced technological prowess yet reluctant to immerse themselves fully in interstellar politics. That changed today. Stepping forward from the shadows was General Marcos, a figure who seemed almost anachronistic amidst the otherworldly delegates with his iron-gray hair, piercing, analytical eyes, and a perpetually stern expression. Marcos, known for his controversial tactics and unyielding resolve, took a deep breath and prepared to speak. The room fell silent, the finality of the moment weighing heavily on everyone present. His proposal, radical and unorthodox, shattered the fragile calm that had been maintained by centuries of tradition and diplomacy. "We must abandon all traditional protocols of engagement," he began, his voice cold and precise. "Our enemy, the Korum, have demonstrated that they do not adhere to the rules of war. To ensure our survival, we must consider total annihilation strategies. Only then can we repel this menace." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the hall. The assembled delegates were a representation of the galaxy's diversity, and each bore a distinct expression in response to Marcos' ruthless suggestion: shock, intrigue, outrage. The resonance of Marcos' words echoed in the cavernous space, a metaphorical hammer striking the fragile anvil of their collective morality. Litra, usually a paragon of composure, could barely contain her dismay. "Abandoning our ethics and traditions makes us no better than the Korum," she countered, her tone trembling with a mix of sorrow and anger. Zathrix, on the other hand, assessed Marcos with newfound respect, his eyes gleaming with a fierce, pragmatic light. The debate raged on, but the persuasive force behind Marcos' unrelenting proposition began to sway opinions. The empirical evidence of the Korum threat, decimated worlds, enslaved populations, entire star systems rendered to ashes, was irrefutable. Slowly, and with great reluctance, the majority of the council members began to incline towards the harsh necessity of Marcos' strategy. The ethical quagmire they found themselves in demanded a choice between the ideals of their forebears and the survival of their civilizations. As hours drained away under the artificial twilight of the Great Hall, the Council approached a decision. The projection monitors flickered, displaying grim visuals of Korum atrocities, pushing even the most pacifistic delegates towards acquiescence. The holographic depictions of planetary destruction, families torn apart, and cultures obliterated fueled the urgency in Marcos' argument. There was no room for half measures if they wished to prevent their fates from being sealed in similar devastation. General Marcos remained impassive as he stood before the council, his composure unshaken by the mounting tension. This was not merely a tactical maneuver, it was an existential imperative. "We have reached a point of no return," Marcos articulated forcefully. "A line must be drawn. If we hesitate, we are condemning countless lives to obliteration at the hands of the Korum." A strained silence fell over the Great Hall, with each delegate grappling with the magnitude of the decision at hand. Resistance slowly dissipated, replaced by a reluctant acceptance born from desperation. Zathrix, conceding a nod towards Marcos, signaled the crucial shift. Even the fiercest advocates of war were now entrusting their strategic autonomy to humanity's decisive, albeit extreme, policies. Emissary Litra's eyelids fluttered as she lowered her head in a gesture of reluctant surrender. "May the essence of our values guide us," she whispered, acknowledging the dire need to adapt or perish. Her words hung in the air, an echo of the principles they were poised to compromise. By the end of the convocation, the path forward was cemented. The council's assembly fell into an uneasy silence, overshadowed by the weight of their collective choice. In the dimmed atmosphere of the Great Hall, Marcos assumed command, marking the beginning of a catastrophic transformation. Under his leadership, the Allied forces underwent rapid and ruthless overhauls. Fleets were rearmed with advanced weaponry and reallocated with merciless efficiency. The Alliance soldiers, once bound by ethical codes and honored combat traditions, were thrust into relentless, paradigm-shifting training regimens. The drills were brutal and unyielding, designed to strip away the vestiges of old moralities and prepare the forces for the grueling demands of total war. The subsequent months saw an eerie metamorphosis within the once honorable alliance. Soldiers adapted to the unforgiving landscape of unrestrained warfare, their spirits hardened under the austere oversight of General Marcos. Ethical reservations gradually disintegrated as survival instinct primed the alliance for the impending horror. The Great Hall, once a symbol of galactic unity and principled governance, now bore silent witness to the emerging ferocity of an alliance poised on the brink of moral capitulation. Stay tuned to discover how this magnificent and epic tale will unfold. As the looming specter of conflict grew ever more tangible, the Galactic Council's once ornate chambers, now transformed into the epicenter of strategic deliberation, buzzed with a palpable tension. The challenge was unprecedented. Repelling the Korum, a species known for its ruthless efficiency and absolute disregard for the sanctity of life, demanded tactics previously deemed unthinkable. The audacious proposal put forth by Earth's General Marcos split the council members, stirring both intrigue and outrage among the diverse coalition of interstellar races. The core of Marcos' controversial strategy rested on a radical shift in warfare philosophy. Gone were the nuanced protocols that had governed intergalactic combat for centuries. In their place, Marcos pushed for a doctrine of total annihilation, leveraging an array of devastating technologies that humanity had perfected in their long isolation. His proposal required the full surrender of strategic authority to him, a move that triggered heated debates and ethical quandaries across the Great Hall. Despite the ferocity of the opposition, the Korum threat loomed like an inescapable nightmare. The galaxy was cornered, plans were scrutinized, counter-proposals discussed, but ultimately, the majority saw no alternative. The realization dawned painfully. Survival might necessitate the unthinkable. With a reluctant gravitas, strategic control was handed to Marcos, and the galactic war machine began its grim metamorphosis. The atmosphere within the Alliance's command hubs shifted dramatically. Naval vessels, sleek and adorned with symbols of peace and honor, were swiftly overhauled and rearmed with an arsenal designed for sheer destruction. Behemoth carriers, outfitted with electromagnetic launch systems and particle cannons, replaced ceremonial craft. The starships of yore, often resembling elegant swans gliding through the cosmos, now donned the semblance of predatory hawks, bristling with lethal intent. Marcos implemented a stringent training regimen for the Alliance soldiers, a conglomerate of species with distinct cultural backgrounds and martial traditions. Drill sergeants, handpicked for their unyielding demeanor, revamped training exercises to condition troops for the grim reality of total warfare. Simulated environments morphed from forests and rolling plains to desolate moonscapes and the cold void of space. There were no more scenarios prioritizing capture or disarmament. The new mantra was destruction, swift and absolute. The enigmatic Professor Thaler of the Rykaran Order, renowned for his insights into xenobiology and combat physiology, reluctantly found himself part of this transformation. Where once his expertise sought ways to incapacitate without ending life, he now cracked the intricate designs of Korum bioweapons. His contributions, though necessary, weighed heavily on his conscience. Watching the young recruits, brave souls from a myriad of worlds, undergo grueling drills, he couldn't shake the feeling of aiding in the corruption of something intrinsically sacrosanct: the honor of combat. Scenes of dynamic training startled rigid ethical debates. A contingent of Colexans, their iridescent blue skin reflecting the harsh light of training simulators, grappled with the transition from noble warriors to relentless combatants. Led by Commander Zyra, a seasoned veteran with scars that narrated battles of old, the Colexans found themselves in moral turmoil. Zyra, known for her stoic composure, struggled privately with the transformation of her unit. The slow erosion of cherished values felt like a betrayal of her ancestors' legacy. For the Zathrix from Karor, infamous for their bellicose nature, the transition was less jarring but equally profound. Purist warriors like Lieutenant Grask saw the merit in Marcos' methods but couldn't ignore the rising whispers of rebellion within their ranks. Visions of scorched worlds and mass destruction bore heavily on the hearts of warriors who once prided themselves on their honor in combat. Despite innate resilience, cracks in their morale became increasingly visible. Under the same harsh lights shone Vargas, a human engineer who had carved his place aboard the reconstructed dreadnought Resolute. He often exchanged somber glances with his alien counterparts. Vargas embodied the new face of the human engineer, calculating, efficient, yet plagued by a vague malaise. Conversations with Takalar, a Viren mechanic renowned for his intuition with alien tech, often delved into the ethics of their work. Together, amidst the cacophony of clanking tools and welding sparks, they questioned if efficiency in war could ever justify its means. Cultural tensions exacerbated the already strained atmosphere. The Arcturians, known for their psionic abilities and pacifist traditions, faced a philosophical crisis. Their representative, the venerable Sener Illicar, engaged in lengthy debates with General Marcos. Though outwardly composed, Illicar's azure eyes mirrored the unease of his people. He recognized the necessity of their cooperation but worried about the long-term consequences on Arcturian ethos. Technological advancements progressed at an unprecedented pace. Quantum field generators, designed to manipulate the fabric of reality itself, became weapons of mass destruction. Dr. Elena Kostova, the human scientist heading Project Nexus, found herself sculpting tools that could obliterate entire fleets within seconds. She haunted the sterile corridors of the Nexus facility, her brilliance shadowed by the disquiet of moral compromise. Consulting with her counterpart, Jaxer, a Clarkan with an uncanny ability to visualize multi-dimensional constructs, she often pondered the path they were traversing. The conversations between them yielded breakthroughs but also layers of existential dread. As months passed, the grim efficiency of Marco's plans began to show. Initial skirmishes against the Korum demonstrated appalling efficacy. Battles once protracted turned into swift, mechanized massacres. Reports filled with the cold recitation of targets obliterated, fleets dismantled, and terrains rendered uninhabitable filtered through command networks. Each victory came at a steep moral cost, gnawing at the fiber of those who cherished honor. The battlefield scenes were grotesque displays of power. Armadas clashed in the vast emptiness, their destructive capabilities rendering stars dim and space fragmented. The flagship of the human fleet, Janara, epitomized the terror Marcos had unleashed. Its array of experimental plasma weapons and nano-swarm projectiles proved devastatingly effective. However, the ensuing carnage left even staunch supporters grappling with the psychological aftermath. As word of the brutal victories spread, dissent grew within the Alliance. Whispers of discontent coalesced into a tangible force. Delegates who had once reluctantly agreed to Marco's command began to vocalize their regrets in clandestine meetings. The Demorian elders, a tripartite council of sages, issued thinly veiled criticisms veering close to open opposition. Their veined, emerald fingers traced patterns in the air as they spoke of forgotten principles and lost honor. In the privacy of the meditation chambers of the consortium, High Priestess Amara of the Wakiran invoked ancient rites to seek guidance from the cosmos. The unity of purpose that once bound the Galactic Alliance began to show signs of strain as General Marcos' directives took hold. Months passed in a blur of relentless reformations and restructurings. This was not merely a war, it was a renaissance of devastation. The human-led alliance, sculpted into a war machine under Marco's totalitarian gaze, began launching calculated, fiendishly creative assaults against the Korum. Sara Prime, a once thriving world known for its angular crystalline spires and iridescent oceans, became the focal point of an evolving tactical showdown. Marcos' legions, now an indomitable and remorseless force, modified their starfighters and ground troops with advanced cybernetics. The neural interfaces allowed real-time coordination and efficiency previously unimaginable, yet hinted at an unsettling blend of man and machine. Campos drone squadrons patrolled the ash-streaked skies, casting ominous shadows over the landscape below. Yet the cost of this newfound power began to surface through hushed conversations and ill-omened glances among the Allied forces. On boarding crafts and within command centers, the original ideals of high moral ground and honorable warfare crumbled under the relentless pressure of Marcos' ethos. Battle after battle, the Korum fell, but the honor of the Alliance crumbled with every victory. In one particularly brutal engagement, the Alliance targeted a significant Korum supply convoy traveling through the asteroid field of Tharum Belt. What should have been a tactical skirmish transformed into a massacre. The convoy was not solely a military transport, it carried civilians, including elders and children. With cold precision, Marcos' fleet shredded the convoy's escort before turning their fire on the unarmed civilian ships. Clean and detached, the virtual commands given by Marcos' soldiers sent masses to their doom. There were no screams in the vacuum of space, yet an echo of horror reverberated through the ranks, sowing seeds of doubt and dread. Deep in the heart of the galaxy, on board the heavily fortified command ship, Vengeance, Lieutenant Zara Ao, a once idealistic soldier of the Lien species, grappled with the ephemeral nature of justice. Zara's lithe form and keen eyes once symbolized hope and purity of purpose. Now, they reflected a labyrinth of questions and inner turmoil. Her tentacle-like hair, reminiscent of the bioluminescent flora of her home planet, now swayed with the heavy weight of decisions that eroded her spirit. As a part of Marco's strategic planning team, she had to reconcile the justifications for their increasingly ruthless tactics. She began to question whether their allegiance to survival had devoured their essence. Other members of the delegation, too, found themselves embroiled in a vortex of moral ambiguity. Zathrix, previously a fierce proponent of total annihilation, recoiled inwardly at the lengths they had reached. His carapace, once polished and glowing from the honor of battle, now dulled with a patina of regret. His compound eyes, capable of surveying vast battlefields, only reflected the disparity between their actions and the noble words spoken at the council meetings. Even he found himself wondering if their victory was worth the degradation of their soul. Battles turned into bleak, choreographed executions. Themes of revenge and survival overpowered constructs of mercy and fairness. The deep space fortress known as Cryon Gallows became another grim symbol of their descent. Resembling a spider awaiting to ensnare its prey, the fortress harbored countless prisoners of war. Korum fighters subjected to bleak interrogations designed not for extracting information but for breaking the spirit. Marcos rationalized these actions as preventive strikes against future threats, but the Alliance forces knew the sordid truth. Through the halls where whispers of torment carried, a palpable sense of complicity settled into their bones. Lieutenant Commander Theo Becker of the human faction struggled with an altogether different kind of ethical dilemma. An engineer at heart, Theo's innovations had modernized their armaments and turned the tide. Yet, as he watched soldiers execute his deadly designs, an unsettling realization took hold. He had enabled a darkness that feasted on unchecked power. His evenings in isolation, looking out into the eternal night of space from his cabin window, were filled with an agonizing self-reproach. The broader media ecosystem, led by the sentient AI news outlets, spun tapestries of patriotism to justify their heinous tactics. Episodes and clips showing victorious battles were juxtaposed with narratives depicting the Korum as irredeemable monsters. The truth, concealed under layers of propaganda, painted a misleading picture for the civilian population scattered across the galaxy's diverse worlds. However, on the front lines, the reality was far less black and white. Behind their ranks, back on their home planets, the whispers of disgust began to surface publicly. Civil rights movements and uprisings began to mirror back to the Allied forces what they had become: ruthless, dishonorable, and in many ways, indistinguishable from their enemies. Emissary Litra faced her darkest moment when she received a message from her home planet, a plea wrapped in desperation and anguish. Families to whom she'd promised security and freedom now spat accusations of betrayal and vengeance. Her propensity for peace and negotiation stood in stark contrast to the horrors she now sanctioned. On one of her sleepless nights, wandering through the silent halls of the command ship, she felt the universe's weight pressing upon her. How had it come to this? Where did she miscalculate? Even leaders of wisdom and peace could not escape the shadow of moral desolation. The galaxy watched as Alliance forces drew closer to the Korum's last bastions. Their strategy was simple yet effective: dismantle the Korum by allowing no room for hope. Every Pyrrhic victory signified a deeper, more irreversible plunge into an endless abyss. General Marcos stood in his war room, staring at the holographic projections of enemy positions. His chiseled face, marred with battle scars, held a stoic expression. To him, the end justified the means. Each decision, calculated and precise, stoked the furnace of their impending total conquest. He understood the ramifications but saw no alternative. Victory, though tinged with monstrous deeds, remained his sole focus. That light within him, the shred of humanity, dimmed with every fallen enemy combatant. His soul, heavy with the burden of leadership and decisions that chained morality to the guillotine of necessity, drifted in the grayscale world of his making. Back on the ground, the Alliance soldiers carried out orders with mechanical efficiency. Among them, war-weary officer alliances had their own moments of painful introspection. A seasoned Terran sniper, Lieutenant Maria Delgado, found solace only in brief moments of solitude between battles. Her once sharp eyes, now tinged with a haunting sadness, betrayed the emotional scars of countless lives taken. The haunting faces of those she ended plagued her dreams. The moon of Sara Prime hung eerily in the inky blackness of space, its surface a desolate expanse scarred by past conflicts. This was the seat of the Korum Empire, the theater for what would undoubtedly become the bloodiest chapter in the galaxy's history. The lunar horizon was filled with the mechanical hum of war machines and the grim determination of soldiers ready to deliver a fatal blow. Under the stern gaze of General Marcos, the Alliance's forces were poised for a final assault. The soldiers had been remolded into relentless warriors, their eyes devoid of the innocence they once held. Marcos, pacing in the command center of his heavily fortified dreadnought, cast a long shadow upon the holographic display of Sara Prime. Each detail, each coordinate, every single life, Korum or Alliance, represented a thread in a tapestry of destruction he was about to unfurl. Miles below, the crater-ridden surface of Sara Prime was alive with kinetic energy. Tanks, ornithopters, and foot soldiers formed an intricate ballet of metal and flesh, their every move orchestrated by Marcos' strategic genius. The arid plains of the moon met with the lush valleys, where the Korum had built their citadels and military installations. The air was electric, heavy with anticipation and the scent of impending doom. The first wave of the assault began with a synchronized barrage of high-energy plasma cannons. Explosions bloomed like poisonous flowers, fiery and destructive, illuminating the dark skies. Ground forces moved in with a precision born from countless hours of ruthless training. The Alliance troops obliterated everything in their path, their march akin to an unyielding tide of annihilation. The Korum, well-prepared yet ultimately overwhelmed, fell back to the fortified inner sanctums of their stronghold, attempting to mount a desperate defense. The battle raged on, the lunar landscape swallowed in a storm of fire and blood. Alliance war machines, engineered with an uncompromising efficiency, wreaked havoc upon the Korum's defensive lines. It was a brutal symphony of destruction, each note a testament to Marcos' tactical acumen and the relentless spirit of his soldiers. Alliance forces breached the outer walls of the Korum Citadel, a monumental edifice carved into the side of a mountain. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid tang of burning ozone, as Korum energy shields flickered and failed under the relentless barrage. The echoes of gunfire, intermingled with the screams of the fallen, created a discordant melody that resonated through the labyrinthine corridors of the stronghold. Within the command center of the Korum Citadel, Supreme Commander Zaros surveyed the battlefield with a mixture of rage and despair. His once gleaming armor was battered and scorched, the evidence of countless battles etched upon its surface. The Korum, a proud and warlike species, were facing their twilight, their empire teetering on the edge of oblivion. Zaros, in his final act of defiance, vowed to fight to the bitter end. As the Alliance forces stormed the citadel, they encountered fierce resistance. The Korum warriors, backed into a corner, fought with a ferocity born from sheer desperation. The tight corridors and narrow choke points became death traps, where the bodies of the fallen piled high. Yet the Alliance's superior numbers and advanced technology slowly, inexorably turned the tide in their favor. Marcos, watching the progress from his command center, did not flinch as reports of casualties flooded in. The price of victory was steep, but it was a price he was willing to pay. This was an existential struggle, there could be no room for hesitation or mercy. A flurry of commands left his lips, each one a calculated directive aimed at ensuring the complete and utter destruction of the Korum. In the heart of the Citadel, a climactic showdown unfolded. Alliance soldiers, led by elite units, penetrated the inner sanctum, where Commander Zaros made his last stand. The imposing chamber, lined with statues of ancient Korum heroes, bore witness to the final moments of an empire. Energy weapons and melee combat melded into a chaotic whirl, a savage contest of wills and skill. Zaros, his once formidable power armor now failing, fought with a primal fury. His twin energy blades danced through the air, cutting down any who dared to approach. But the outcome was inevitable. One by one, the defenders fell, the tide of Alliance soldiers washing over them like a relentless storm. And then, with a final, desperate cry, Zaros was overwhelmed, his life extinguished amid the carnage. The Citadel, the heart of the Korum Empire, lay in ruins. The Alliance forces, battered and bloodied, stood victorious. The moon of Sara Prime, once a symbol of Korum might, was now a graveyard, a silent monument to the horrors of war. Marcos, surveying the victory from his command center, felt a fleeting moment of triumph. Yet beneath the stoic exterior, a storm of conflicting emotions raged. The cost had been incalculable, the destruction absolute. The galaxy would never be the same. As the realization dawned upon him, the weight of his decisions pressed heavily upon his soul. In the aftermath, the lunar battlegrounds of Sara Prime became a haunting testament to the price of ruthlessness. The landscape was littered with the remnants of both sides, the twisted, charred remains of machinery, the lifeless bodies of warriors. It was a stark, brutal reminder of the cost of victory. The galactic community, witnessing the horrors unfold, stood fractured and morally bankrupt. The ideals of honor and morality had been sacrificed on the altar of survival. The victory, though absolute, left a bitter taste, a hollow triumph that cast a long shadow across the stars. Marcos, the architect of this grim victory, found himself at a crossroads. The Alliance was now a fearsome war machine, but at what cost? The whispers of discontent grew louder, allies questioning the monstrous price they had paid. Had they become what they had vowed to destroy? Had the pursuit of survival led them to sacrifice their very humanity? As the smoke cleared and the dust settled, the galaxy was forced to reckon with the consequences of the bloody climax on Sara Prime. The echoes of this conflict would resonate through the ages, a stark reminder of the price of victory and the fragility of morality in the face of annihilation. The chapter closed not with a sense of resolution, but with a lingering question, a haunting uncertainty about what lay ahead. The galaxy, scarred and broken, faced an uncertain future. The path to redemption and reconstruction was fraught with peril, and the shadows of this war would loom large over all who survived. The bloody climax left the galaxy teetering on the brink, with the echoes of sacrifice and ruthlessness reverberating through the cosmos. The war had left wounds that no medical technology, no matter how advanced, could heal. Cities lay in ruins. The echoes of brutal warfare haunted the streets. The smell of scorched metal and burned vegetation filled the air, a stark reminder of the violent past. The once vibrant planets, teeming with life and culture, now lay silently under a shroud of somber desolation. The Alliance, though victorious, faced a stark reality. The greater challenge was just beginning. Amid the debris and remnants of the catastrophic battles, began the painful process of reconstruction. A task, enormous in its scale, required the collective effort of all surviving civilizations. Delegates from various star systems convened once again, this time not for war strategies, but for peace treaties and rebuilding plans. The Great Hall, which had echoed with calls for battle, now resonated with the hum of a nascent hope, the promise of a new beginning. Navigating through the labyrinths of broken architecture, the workforces maneuvered colossal machines designed to clear rubble and reconstruct infrastructure. The combined efforts of engineers, technicians, and laborers from multiple species signified a renewed dedication to unity. The task was exhaustive, both physically and emotionally. Yet, the toil brought an understanding that ran deeper than any alliance forged in war. It was a bond born out of the sheer will to survive and rebuild. The palpable tension between different factions of the alliance remained, simmering beneath the surface. Ideological rifts posed a continuous threat to the fragile peace. Among these, the presence of humans brought mixed feelings to many. Their drastic measures during the war, deemed necessary by some, lingering as a source of discomfort and resentment for others. Human philosophy, influenced by the moral quandaries and consequences they faced, started to evolve. It carried messages of hope intertwined with cautious wisdom born from their own missteps. General Marcos, once a pillar of merciless strategy and unwavering resolve, now found himself in a position he had never anticipated. Navigating through the halls of the Galactic Council with a new demeanor, he addressed the assembly not with the cold precision of war planning but with an earnest plea for thoughtful reconciliation. His speeches became less about commanding and more about cooperating, less about dictating and more about discussing. Marcos was a pivotal figure during the war, but in peace, he was learning to be one as well. His transformation was a testament to humanity's potential for redemption. Among the gathering of delegates, there were survivors of the Korum, beings now mingling with their former enemies. Their once proud empire decimated, they arrived as refugees, carrying stories of survival, loss, and an indomitable will to endure. The sight of these displaced beings sparked an introspective reformation within the Galactic Council. The once rigid divides of the Council softened, echoing with a shared understanding that their diversity was their true strength. These shared experiences facilitated intricate and often painful discussions about ethics, justice, and reparation. Debates, although fierce, gradually shifted towards more compassionate perspectives. Proposals were made to establish memorials, not just as reminders of their atrocities, but as symbols of their collective decision to transcend beyond them. Planetary healing centers were devised to assist both the physical and psychological recovery of war-ravaged populations. Rimas, a planet central to the Alliance, became a beacon of this transformative period. The capital city, Alara, served as the heart of the intergalactic rebuilding efforts. Majestic domes of translucent material once marred by war scars, slowly regained their splendor, thanks to the relentless efforts of the community. Artificial intelligence, once utilized for warfare, found new purposes. Sophisticated AI systems now managed resource distribution, urban planning, and ecological restoration. Autonomous drones flitted through the skies, replanting forests and restoring natural habitats devastated by the conflict. Advanced medical facilities emerged, treating not just the wounds of the flesh but the deeper, invisible traumas imprinted on the psyche of war survivors. An ephemeral connection seemed to settle among the ruins, a shared consciousness that hummed through the remaining architecture and whispered through the rebuilt corridors. It was as though the very essence of these places held an intrinsic memory of what once was and what could be again, woven delicately through every brick and circuit. Negotiations with Korum representatives highlighted a commitment to transparency and empathy, as former enemies found unexpected kinship in their mutual losses. The Galactic Council, in their new role as peacekeepers, instituted programs aimed at fostering cultural exchange and mutual respect. Events celebrating the diverse heritages of each star system were organized, showcasing art, music, and traditions that had once been overshadowed by war. Holovids displayed scenes of reunited families, acts of forgiveness, and collaborative innovation projects that inspired hope. While rebuilding continued on various physical and technical fronts, an equally significant transformation unfolded within the realm of thought and philosophy. Scholars from different worlds united in investigating the deeper implications of their previous conflicts, penning treaties that would guide future generations towards more empathetic coexistence. New convocations of thinkers and educators convened regularly, debating profound ethical questions that challenged previously held beliefs. The comprehensive history of the Galactic War was documented meticulously, to serve both as a remorseful reflection and a solemn directive for future actions. Despite the Council's best efforts, ideological conflicts did not vanish overnight. Political tensions and debates over resource allocation persisted, reflecting deep-rooted fears and prejudices. Nonetheless, the collective oath towards peace pushed these conversations towards compromise and understanding. Delegates embraced the notion that their survival depended not just on rebuilding structures, but also on reshaping their collective mindset. In the quiet corners of the cosmic expanses, under the dim glow of distant stars, humanity and Korum had private reconciliations. On secluded plains, amidst growing settlements, there were unscheduled gatherings. These small but significant assemblies comprised warriors and civilians alike, where old stories were recounted, wounds, both physical and emotional, laid bare, and mutual hopes weaved new bonds. It was here that the real spirit of reconstruction materialized, in the humble acceptance of each other's frailties and strengths. As the Galactic Council endeavored to forge this tentative yet hopeful peace, they recognized that the path forward demanded patience and resilience. The idea of a future beyond ruin and war seemed ever so possible as shattered beliefs and shared traumas gradually gave birth to an uneasy but necessary truce. The weight of their past actions, the lessons learned, the bridges rigorously rebuilt, ushered in an era of unprecedented unity. The galaxy lay in anticipation, balanced delicately on the precipice between resurgence and relapsing into chaos. As new alliances formed and old enemies turned co-pioneers in harmony, the celestial fabric of their universe seemed to resonate with a newfound, humble strength. Every planet, city, and individual played a part in this epic mosaic of reconstruction, emphasizing the essence of coexistence and mutual respect. In the culmination of this tale, the profound emotional journeys of each character, the grand scale of interstellar politics, and the meticulous detailing of alien environments all converged into a singular, resonant truth. If you liked this story based on real events, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like it. Here you can dive into a different reality every day, where anything can happen. Comment below what kind of story you would like to hear here. Thank you very much for your attention. We are the Sci-Fi family.